Hi, it's Stephen Molnar here, and I'm with Konrad Bobilak, who's the CEO and founder of Investors Prime. Konrad, I want to continue talking to you about your team, and I want to ask you about your team working together, and also another question about how do you know you've got the right person in your team, as in terms of most people don't know how to compare one accountant to another accountant, or one mortgage broker to another mortgage broker, or one team to another team. So can you give us some of your experience and insights and guiding principles on that, please?
Definitely. Look, the team is very important in the whole grand scheme of things, because ultimately your ability to implement any strategy out there, you're going to be reliant on your accountant, your mortgage broker, your solicitor. How to identify them is the hardest thing. And in fact, in my book, Australian Property Finance Made Simple, one of the chapters is actually 19 questions you need to ask a mortgage broker in order to pre-qualify them.
Right.
And I guess it comes down to experience. I mean, there is no shortcut to gain the knowledge on how to pre-qualify an accountant correctly or a mortgage broker. The best way is to find someone that's already established a large property portfolio and ask them what they look for when they're selecting the right mortgage broker and the right accountant. In the book Australian Property Finance Made Simple, I talk about what my selection criteria is specifically for mortgage brokers, because most mortgage brokers out there are completely useless. I mean, if you look at the whole industry, if you're a mortgage broker, you know the stats. 95% of all mortgage brokers make less than 45 grand a year. They write 2 loans a month. You know, ultimately, most of them are lazy. They do the same lenders over and over and over. One of the things that I ask for when I'm looking at a mortgage broker is to print off the last 100 transactions they've done. So I want to see the lenders that they've used. You know, so most mortgage brokers aggregate through an intermediary, and that intermediary might have 30 lenders or 20 lenders or 40 lenders on their panel. But if you see a list of 100 transactions and they're all the same lender, so if you see Westpac, Pepper Home Loans, Westpac, you know that the broker's pumping everyone through 2 lenders.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of an accountant, my pre-qualification criteria for an accountant is they have to be themselves a very successful property investor. I would never deal with an accountant that has no properties behind them. Now, if you're just starting out and you're buying your first property, yes, you could probably get away with it. You know, you don't need to find an accountant with 10 properties. But if you really want to take it to the next level, if you really want to buy 10 properties over 10 years or 5 properties over 5 years, you really can't deal with an accountant that has 1 investment property in their house, you know? And that's what I think the majority of people end up dealing with. They just go to a local accountant because they're qualified, they think they've got the experience. But ultimately, if you line up 5 different accountants and you ask the same question, you're going to get 5 different answers, sure. All technically correct, but all based on their experience and their level of awareness.
And they might have the same qualifications on the wall from the same uni even.
Absolutely, and that happens all the time. So, you know, they don't learn everything in accounting school.
Yes.
The majority of the stuff they learn is on the job, and then they choose the industry they want to tap into.
Yeah.
So my accountant, for example, which is Brandy & Co., they specialise and they niche in property investing. You know, I'm not saying they're the best accountant in Australia, I'm just saying that they're the ones that I've chosen because they tend to focus on developers and property investors. My solicitor, for example, which is Bizani Scully Priddle lawyers, if you look at their website and you look what they do, it says that they are a property law specialist, specialising in helping developers and property investors in Melbourne for the last, 25 years.
Sure.
So you know that they niche in property, that's their area of expertise, and that's what they choose to operate in. Mortgage brokers are the hardest people to actually find, you know, and the thing is, I used to think that dealing with the top 10, top 20 mortgage broker in Australia is the way to go, because every year they have awards for the top mortgage brokers, and the awards are based on volume that they write. So the top mortgage broker might earn $1 million, for the year. And they might write, $250 million for the year. You know, most mortgage brokers, by the way, only write about $25 million per year. So the top mortgage brokers write 10 times what the average mortgage broker writes. But does that translate to expertise? Not so much, because they could be writing a lot of volume, but they could be doing the same volume through the same lenders over and over and over.
And they could be first home buyers, for instance.
Exactly.
Yeah, who know nothing about structures and investment.
Or they could have just a really good lead generation system.
Yeah.
And they could be buying leads somewhere and just pumping people through the same lenders.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing is, how do you find these people? I mean, to me, I wish there was a shortcut. I wish there was some way you could just circumvent the whole thing and just find the best ones. it really comes down to dealing with other successful property investors, I guess, and having that high-level conversation with them and saying, who do you use as your accountant, your lawyer, your whoever, and what has been your experience?
Yep.
And if most of the time, I mean, if I get asked a question from someone, I've got nothing to lose. I'll tell them exactly what my experience has been. If I've had a negative experience with someone, I'm definitely going to tell them, I've had a negative experience with this person, do not use them, they're useless, you know?
Yes.
If I've had a positive experience, I'll do the same thing, you know, because
Absolutely.
I've got no vested interest in the outcome. That's why networking and spending time with like-minded individuals is so important, especially people getting results right now, you know. Tapping into those networks, surrounding yourself with people that are on the same journey that you're on is the best strategy for becoming successful in real estate, in my opinion.
That's great. One last thing, if I can ask you, Konrad, just tell us about these professionals being able to work with each other. Why is that important?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the trickiest thing, you know, having your accountant work with your mortgage broker, because most of the time they don't talk to each other. And one thing that I've done with my mentoring program that I run is I almost act as a project manager, an intermediary between all the parties, you know, to make sure they're all talking to one another, and also that
they're all on the same page.
They're on the same page, and
Yeah.
they're executing the right strategies in order to maximize the goals that the investor has in mind. See, in most cases, for example, the accountant will work against the mortgage broker to some
How
extent.
so? What do you mean?
Accountants normally are trained to minimize income, minimize tax.
Right, sure, yeah.
Brokers, on the other hand, want to maximize income because they want to maximize the amount of money you can borrow from a lender.
Sure.
So you might have an accountant giving you really good advice on how to get rid of all your income, especially for self-employed people where there's virtually no income.
Yep.
All right, so you're paying no tax.
Well, that's the holy grail they've been told to do as a business person.
The problem is that you take that to the mortgage broker and says, well, I can't give you any money because you got no income. So finding that middle ground
Yep.
of minimizing tax legally, of course, we're not talking about tax avoidance here.
Yes.
Finding that middle ground and enabling the investor to borrow more money to buy more property, and having a person who understands what structures to use without
Yes.
giving direct advice,
Yes.
and how to coordinate the parties all together so they're all synchronized is key.
Yep.
And that's something that I do for my clients. I've been doing that for a long time, and really there is no shortcut of learning that. It just comes down to experience, you know, just years of doing it for myself and other people. But that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing for you guys out there who are wanting to build large property portfolios is identifying your team, pre-qualifying them, actually knowing what to ask them, because they all sound the same. They're in the industry, they all speak the same jargon
And the same qualifications.
and the same qualifications, right? But there's a massive difference in what they can do.
Yeah.
But until you start dealing with them, you won't know how good they are, you know. And I've seen people lose a lot of time because of bad accountants.
Sure.
You know, conservative accountants and conservative financial planners who steer people away from real estate investing into other areas, you know, because of their personal beliefs or their sometimes it's their risk profile or their fears that they have, you know, and that's the main difference. I mean, you know, I met an accountant when my family actually met an accountant when we first moved to Australia in '85, who was always against residential real estate investing, and he was always telling clients to stay away from residential real estate and buy shares. You know, and even today, he still gives the same advice, where a lot of accountants that I deal with now and financial planners are actually property developers themselves, who happen to have a business, which is a financial planning business or a accounting business, but they're actively developing. So the advice you're going to get from a person like that is going to be completely different to the guy that's
Yes.
sitting in the office there, you know, scared of investing in real estate, doesn't understand it, and it steers you towards shares and managed funds and things that they're comfortable with. Ultimately, people will work within the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So you want to get people that have actually, the team especially, who have consciously started their journey and are pro-property investing, if that's what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best advice. So it is, you know, it's very difficult to get the right team. That's a huge part of your success, you know, and getting the right team, getting the right people, and then having them all work together and synchronize. I mean, it's like herding cats almost, you know. It's not easy.
That's great. All right. Well, thanks for that, Konrad.